I need to press OK?
Yeah,
Hey, look at there. I pressed OK.
pressed OK. Good morning, class, or afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. I am so excited. This is our final interview for this course. And this is Rosalind Lewis. I have known her since I think God made dirt. I'm the one who convinced her that adoption was a really good idea. And she has two adult kids now as a result. She was actually already convinced, but I delivered literally. And she is a retired sheriff. She had a long career. Her dad also was a athletic director in
No, he was a
Phoenix,
boxing coach for,
boxing coach.
yeah.
So I'm going to let Rosalind go ahead and introduce herself, and we're going to talk about what it's like to be law enforcement and then not be law enforcement.
Okay, I'm gonna move to a different location
Okie
because
doke.
I don't like the sun shining in my face. All right, let's see if we can get this better. All right.
All right. There
Sorry,
may be
Paul.
squeaking behind us. Lily just brought a squeak toy.
All right. Hopefully this is better. Good morning. Like she said, my name is Rosalind Lewis. I am retired with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. I was there for 26 and a half years. I worked various assignments from the jail system to patrol. I was a instructor at the academy. I taught firearms, defensive tactics, chemical agents, baton training, and I also taught vehicle like pursuits, things of that nature. And I was a detective for 2.5 years, and then I got promoted to sergeant. And then I was a sergeant detective, worked the jails again, did a lot of training, that type of thing. Like she said, I have actually I have three adopted
Three adult
children.
kids.
Three adult kids, all are adopted. And just like anything else, I'm waiting for all of them to, their age are adults, but their mind are not adults. So,
And if anyone's an adoptive parent like we are, you'll get it.
yeah. So that is my story, I guess.
Yep. And you retired from SBSO a
And
few years.
8 years ago.
I can't
And
believe
the
it's been
reason
that long.
yeah, it's been that long. Yeah.
She's got a hell of a golf swing.
Yeah. So the reason I retired is, I think this is the part of the class you guys want to know, is my plan was not to retire at that time. I was planning on, well, my plan was to be promoted to lieutenant. And I had been on the list for being promoted to lieutenant, and they wanted to give me some other assignments, that type of thing, to get me ready, I guess you can say. And then, but I also like to do woodworking. So I made several things in my house, like shelves, bookshelves, things of that nature. I made toy boxes for my two younger kids, and two of my friends were having kids. One was actually having a kid, one was adopting a kid. And I thought, oh, for a present, I'll make them toy boxes. Well, I was down to the last cut of the toy box lid, and it wasn't just right because, cops are anal, so to speak. Things have to be
Perfectionists.
right, right, perfectionists. And it wasn't right. So I tried to do one more last cut, and I wasn't paying attention. And the saw, I turned it off, and the saw cut my finger, my trigger
Badly.
finger. I didn't see it. I felt it. God does wonderful things with your body, because I went into shock. I'm sure that I did. But being law enforcement, we have training every 2 years with first aid, CPR, that type of thing. I knew what I needed to do, call 911, put pressure on it, and that's what I did. My son, who at the time was 12 or 13 at the time, and he's the one that called 911 for me. And I
What
wasn't
a trooper
sure.
James is.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I counted my fingernails, all 4 were there, so I'm assuming there was just a little cut. And when I got to the hospital, I realized it was not just a little cut.
Mm-mm.
So they had to amputate my index finger, which I'm right-handed, and it was on the right hand. And I cut not just one finger, but I cut 3 fingers. But they were able to save 2 of the 3. So my plan, because I'm ambidextrous, my plan was to learn how to shoot left-handed. So for 2 months, every Friday I went to the shooting range with a friend of mine and taught myself, and with her help, how to shoot left-handed. So I went back to the county doctor. I went to shooting. Was it? It's like a shooting club, but they do different types of shooting and different types of, and everything's all time. So I went to that to show them that I can shoot. But the county doctor said no, because you can't train your brain to be left-handed or right-handed. It's automatic, is what she kind of explained to me, which I thought was BS, because I can write left-handed.
Yeah, your brain clearly crisscrosses over.
Yes. So without the county doctor's approval, they kind of forced me to kind of retire, in the sense that I have to be able to use both hands. So with that, I had to learn how to tie my shoes differently, put on, because my middle finger doesn't bend. So I had to learn how to redo my hair, because you can't go to the hairdresser all the time. And so that was just a very stressful, I guess you could say I lost my identity, because
you really did.
Yeah, I did see therapy. I went to the county therapist they send you to. Mm-hmm. I just realized that maybe God had a different plan for me than to be in law enforcement anymore, but it took me a long time, even now sometimes, to accept it, because I still kind of work in law enforcement in a sense, because I was able to go back to the sheriff's department and be a background investigator. So I did that for 3.5 years. And then
nice.
Now but like I said, it takes your identity away when you have plans and the plans don't work to what you want them to be. And at the first 2 weeks I was off, I felt like I was on vacation. But then they allowed me to come back to work to do some kinds of things. But then when they said, nope, you can't come back, I was like, well,
what does that mean?
I don't know if you can cuss on this, but
yes, you can.
Okay, what the hell? Why can't you just let me do, you have positions in the sheriff's department, because we're over 3,500 sworn people, and we cover a long range of things. And so why can't you just let me work in the office? And that was their answer was no.
Just no?
Just no. So
that's a certain loss and betrayal.
Yes. And I'm like, well, I had to make an appointment with the deputy chief to try to see what else I can do. And he's like, well, no, I can't, because the county doctor said no. So
you can't work in an office?
No. That's why they gave me the position as a background investigator, but I can no longer carry a gun.
And that's a loss of identity too.
Yes. I mean, I can't carry a gun on duty, but I can have a gun, but I can't carry it. And it was just, they wanted me to say, okay, you can be with the sheriff's department, but you can be like they have a position to where you go out and you take reports that they don't know who the suspect is, or you can do traffic investigations and things of that nature, where there's no suspect contact. But that's like going 5 steps backwards. It would have been a general employee. Shut up, dog.
That would have been like writing tickets on cars in downtown.
Yes.
No, that's not your identity. And that's not what your training was for.
No. So I told them no, absolutely not, because it would have been a huge like demotion type deal,
Mm-hmm.
And if I retired from that position, I could no longer carry a gun. I wouldn't have the concealed weapons permit anymore because I would have retired as a general employee and not as a safety employee. I said, no, absolutely not. I'm not doing that.
That would have been a loss in benefits.
Yes, loss in benefits, loss in pay.
Right.
So I said no. So I took
Wow.
my retirement. Yes, and it was a difficult year, mentally
Yeah.
and physically, because like I said, I had to learn how to do several things all over again.
And it's hard to be dependent and not be able to do the things
Yeah, like this one
physically.
shirt, I had this, I love this one shirt, but I couldn't button it. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
button the sleeve on it. So I would have, if I wanted to wear it, I would have to go to work and have somebody at work button it for me because my finger,
Just couldn't do it.
it couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I mean, you have to have some, I mean, you have to lose your pride to ask somebody for help,
Right.
knowing that you used to be able to do this, but now you cannot. There's certain things that I still can't do, which irritates me. So
yeah, after I had my stroke, I couldn't drive for like 9 months, and I would have to go out to Kaiser where they would do PT that didn't do anything because it was for the wrong kind of stroke. And then I take the bus to my office, and it was always, well, we'll come get you. Like, no, I need to be independent.
yeah,
Even if it takes me 2 hours to get there, damn it, I'm gonna take the bus.
Yeah.
Because I need to have that independence. But yeah, the dressing, the operating machinery, all of that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So it was very difficult. Sometimes it's still difficult. Like some friends where I wanted to go bowling, and I used to bowl, but I can't bowl anymore because I tried, and but the one middle finger, it has screws. That's 2 plates in it and
Mm-mm.
7 screws.
No, I
And
wouldn't
so,
put that in a bowling ball.
well, I tried because hard headed. I
Right.
tried. Yeah, it wouldn't almost come out. So I like, okay. So I tried to do it left-handed, and it was hysterical. So
The balance thing wouldn't work well
yeah,
for that.
no.
My goodness. Did you maintain ties with a lot of your friends from the department when you retired?
Yes, I do.
You
So
did.
once a month, like 4 of us get together and we have lunch. But I still have friends on the department. I still have friends who call me. I just had one of my previous, I guess, okay, subordinates, I guess you want to call me, ask me for a reference. I hadn't seen him in like 10 years. And I work right now, I work for San Bernardino Valley College. They have an extended basic academy, and I'm one of the coordinators there. So I'm still kind of in law enforcement in a sense where,
You're shaping law enforcement.
yeah, so they're getting instructions. And so that's where I have to go tonight. So yeah, so I'm still kind of in law enforcement, but not in the way that my dreams and hopes were. So
So
yeah,
lots of adapting.
yes, yes.
Is that
Mentally,
something that
and physically. So yeah.
is that something they teach in academy or in any of the CEs that law enforcement in California gets about how to take care of yourself? What happens when things don't end the way you think they should?
To answer your question is prior to this year, the answer to that is no.
Okay.
They have critical thinking classes now where we teach, it's not a mandated from the state. Our academy teaches critical incidences and what happens when something bad goes awry, something, and how to deal with that. Now they have legislation in California now has a class that just starting this year to where it's wellness. It's talk about mental health and things of that nature. And we're going to have a psychologist teach that portion of the class.
Nice.
So
A question from some of the staff in my own office, as a matter of fact, when potential law enforcement officers come in and they want counseling, they're afraid to tell the people interviewing them for their background check that they've ever even seen a therapist. And I've said, don't lie.
Yeah.
Don't lie for them. First of all, someone's going to find out. Secondly, their future department needs to trust them. But is there a bias?
Yes.
Okay, so that's still true.
Yes,
Okay.
because, well, it is a bias, but it's not so much as a bias anymore. So when I was on it, let's see, we had because we do have a counseling team, and counseling is taught part of the academy. We do have a psychologist that comes in because you have to take a psychologist test prior to getting in.
Yeah.
And we do have a counseling team. We do have a support group with a whole bunch of, because not a whole bunch, but regular peers that are peer counseling. We do have that. So say, for example,
Good.
if you don't want to go to the counseling team, you can call peer counseling, and they've been trained to talk to you through whatever issues you're going through. And that started about, I don't want to say, maybe 15, 16 years ago.
So we're 15 years ahead of Texas. I'd just like you to know, according to Bobby.
Okay. But, and it's all confidential, obviously. But you can request, you can go to like counseling, and it's obviously confidential. But there is still your peers. If they find out, then their lack of trust for you is there. Because if you can't handle being on this job, then why are you here? It's not the fact that maybe something else is going on and not just a job. Maybe it's your kids or your family or what have you. You need somebody else to talk to.
Right.
But if they find out, you're looked upon differently. So
wow,
there still is some bias there. Yes.
be nice. I love the peer counseling part. I love the fact that it can be acknowledged that there's issues, because everybody out there, for those who don't know, San Bernardino is the one that had a mass shooting, and a really ugly one. And we should be able to provide the support in whatever way that law enforcement or any of the other first responders need and will accept.
Yeah, and two, so say for example, for that particular incident, they can't make you go, but it was highly suggested that they went. So if you are in any type of trauma situation like a shooting or something to where it may affect you mentally, especially for a shooting, you are required to go seek counseling for the shooting before you come back to work.
Right.
But anything else, it's up to you, from my understanding. Yes. I mean, there's police officers, firefighters, first responders see things that you wouldn't wish upon your worst enemy. And you don't, some people have a hard time talking about it. And one of my things was I never wanted to bring work home. And
that's been mentioned by every single law enforcement officer.
Yeah. You don't want to bring work home because there's some things that your spouse or significant other don't need to hear, because they're already afraid for you when you go to work. So you don't want to bring that more stress and more fearful home.
And the reality.
And the reality of, this happens. There's some things that my spouse still don't know that happens, and because it's sometimes it's very difficult to talk about it, because each time you talk about it, you relive it.
Right.
And so there's some things that we don't want to relive. So, and it's
like therapists, but way worse.
Yeah.
way worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a support group now, the first one ever for funeral directors, because they get called out in some states directly to the scene to retrieve bodies because they don't have a local coroner. And so they are out there. And until 2 years ago, there was never a support group for them. And they were also that we don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't share it. We don't acknowledge it. And the national teams who do that, they have debriefings, but they say but they go because they're told to, not because they're actually going to share anything with the therapist sitting there who's never done their job before.
Yeah. So yeah. And it's hard explaining to people who aren't first responders what you go through, because we have a different mentality, a different way of looking at life, looking at certain situations. And trying to explain it to somebody who, first of all, may not like cops, or may not. I mean, everybody loves firefighters, but not everybody likes cops, right?
It's exactly right.
Because
and you have to go protect the firefighters.
Yes, we do. That, like, I don't know if you guys. I mean, sure, some of you are old enough to know about the Rodney King when L.A. went up in smoke. Mm-hmm. Well, I was the only female from my department that went, and had to protect the firefighters because they were getting shot at. So right. That's one of our responsibilities, make sure they were safe while they were trying to put out fires. And they could not put out every fire that was going on. They would put water on it and go to the next. So that was
incredibly dangerous.
It was very dangerous. And we had a sniper at one point. We didn't know where that particular person was. We were getting shot at too. So it was a stressful situation. So, like I said, we see things, experience things that most people couldn't handle. And but my thought process was, I chose this profession. It didn't, I didn't have to do it. Just like the military, I was in the military. I didn't have to go. I chose it. So, my mentality is, no one's making me do this. I can quit at any time. But that wasn't my character. That wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to, like most cops get. So I say there's two different types of cops. I could be wrong, but this is just my personality or my take on it. There are cops who were bullied when I was a kid, and cops who were bullied and did the bullying as kids. And they're trying to either make themselves be bigger than what they really are, or trying to make amends for what they did as a kid.
It's an interesting take on it.
So I've always thought that. So that's one of the reasons why I became in law enforcement, because I was the bullier. I did a lot of bullying as a kid. And I said, that's, as I grew up and matured and realized that what I did was not right. So I wanted to make amends for all the crap.
Make it right.
I did to other people. And, took advantage. I did take advantage of people. I did things that I shouldn't have done, as a kid. But
that's what kids do.
Kids do stupid stuff. And, that was, so being a police officer, that was one of my ways of making amends for all the crap that I did.
That makes some perfect sense. Do you feel like you did enough in the time that you were on the job?
Yeah, I think I helped people who, my thing was, I wanted to help people who couldn't help themselves, right? So you get in situations where you are dealing with people on their worst day, and how do you handle that, and how do you make it less stressful, less traumatic for that particular victim, right? And then there's those other people who are on the other end of that. You want to take them away from society because they need to be put somewhere so they don't hurt other people. So that was my dealing with how I handled that. And then I had one particular gentleman. He and his girlfriend were homeless, but a lot of times I have a different take on homeless, but anyway, he was in and out of prison. He was a drug addict. He was in and out of prison. And I happened to stop them one day, and he had a warrant because he didn't go see his parole officer. So I took him to jail. And then about a year or so later, I'm at another call, and this particular person comes in. He's a delivery person, and he said, Deputy Lewis, hi, you remember me? And I'm like, and he told me who he was. And he goes, well, I want to thank you for arresting me, because when I went back to prison, I got clean. I'm out. I'm clean. I have a job. I have an apartment. And I said, what about Amy, which was his girlfriend? She goes, I'm trying to get her to be clean too, but she won't leave the dogs. And my apartment doesn't allow dogs. So she's on her own. But he thanked me, and I'm like, wow, you don't
Yeah.
get that. You don't get that.
No, you really don't. That's awesome.
Yeah. So he goes, yeah. He goes,
Sometimes we do make a difference.
yeah. So if you hadn't arrested me, I'd probably be dead by now, is what he told me. So
Wow. In
there's some
my
good things.
profession, we keep I tell young therapists they need to keep a book of success. And so when they have those moments where they hear something good or someone says thank you, they write it down, because there are lots of days where you just go from one thing to another, and you just need to take a trauma bath at the end of the day, and you can look at that book and say, no, I made a difference in that one.
Yeah.
That one made a difference. Yeah. Is that something that you did?
Say it again? No.
Did you ever
I
keep a
no.
little?
No, I kept no, I just certain things you remember.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that at some point in time, because so there's certain things like for writing reports and things of that nature, you're not supposed to keep your notes on your reports.
Right. Us too.
Yeah. So there's certain things I remember that's one of the things I will never forget. Another one was a guy, he had thanked us for arresting him because he couldn't make it on the outside. He needed to go back to jail. So he
Or you had
stole some.
structure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he needed structure. And I arrested him, and he's thanking me as I'm putting handcuffs on him. Like, dude, this is kind of weird.
There's air conditioning waiting for me where we're going.
Yeah, that, and I get a bed, and I get to eat, I get my clothing, I get to watch TV,
Shower.
Yeah, I get told what to do. He goes, I just can't make it out here. I don't know what to do. He's free, but he doesn't know how to handle the freedom. And most people, who haven't been in that situation don't understand, why would you want to go back? Well, because to them, that's structure. That's their life.
We see that at some of the homeless programs that we take our students to.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a certain percentage that just that's home,
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
That's my story. Well, more of it. Some of it that I can tell.
When you were dealing with the loss of your role and navigating how you were going to still fit into law enforcement in a way that worked for you and meant something positive for you, were there ways that you dealt with those losses that were helpful or not?
I did, like I said, I did see a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
and I prayed a lot. I read daily scripture, because growing up, Southern Baptist, you get a sense of, well, at least I did, that there's a reason for everything and God's in control. So that's how I had to look at it. Otherwise, I'd go crazy.
So you're looking for grace.
Yeah, because not everybody has that kind of belief system, so they struggle. And that's just my opinion. But you have to have something,
bigger than you.
My thought, bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe, and a couple of friends have made a suggestion that maybe not God allowed it, but God had something different planned for you in your life, and being law enforcement anymore on the streets was not it, because I got temporary transferred to downtown San Bernardino, where I had worked patrol before, and it just got 20 times, 30, 50% worse than when I was on patrol there.
I'm glad you're not there right now.
So
just saying.
Yeah. So thinking back on it, maybe God's like, maybe I'm sparing your life. You may have lost a finger in your ability to be a cop anymore, but what's worse, you losing your finger or your life? So that's how I had
You
to,
got to come home.
I chose to look at it that way,
Mm-hmm.
based on the things that are happening there now and the way law enforcement officers are being treated, I kind of say, by legislation and the community, and that because the community is in certain areas the community is not backing law enforcement, so it makes it doubly hard to do your job when laws are being passed that are tying one hand behind your back, and you're still expected to make certain decisions and certain um to do your job a certain way when the laws are preventing you from doing those particular, they
Mm-hmm.
want all the bad people off the street, but once you arrest them,
Back
by the
out.
time by the time you even get back to your car and back to, you haven't even returned a report to keep them in jail, they've already letting them out. So
Mm-hmm.
the officer's like, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
So why am I busting my rear end to take the bad people off the street when they're just going to be let back out?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I can totally see that. And that's part of the moral injury that Bobby and some of the others talked about is I'm putting my life on the line and you folks are asking me to do it doubly because the people that I'm arresting are going to be even angrier and they're going to be back out waiting for me.
It's in some ways it's demoralizing because we don't have, first of all, you don't have society backing you, don't have the legislature backing you, and sometimes it's a fight within your own department that are preventing you from doing your job because of whatever laws, not laws but policies and procedures, which is good to keep you keep you on this straight and narrow. But then you have some supervisors who are go-getters, and you have some supervisors, no, let's keep this up, let's keep the citizens happy, and let's not do X, Y, and Z. Well, the people who are causing problems in this community are not making the citizens safe, but we don't want to upset them. Well, somebody's going to get upset, whether
If someone
either
gets hurt or gets killed, there's going to be all kinds of hullabaloo.
yeah, so either the society is going to be upset or the crook is going to be upset. Which one do you want to upset the least? So
Right.
sometimes you're fighting battles on 3 fronts, maybe 4 fronts, depending on the situation. So I know some friends who are not making arrests because what's the point? What's the point? So unless it's a violent crime, and even that has changed. What constitutes a violent crime, right? So unless a violent crime, you're not going there. The person is not going to stay in jail until they go to court. They're going to be let out. So there's certain
And
things.
some of those violent crime reclassifications here in our state, they really are violent crimes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So like if someone, so say for example, someone burglarizes your house and they in your home, so it's not burglary anymore because now it becomes a home invasion robbery, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if the person's not hurt, you're just, so is it a violent crime because
Yes.
the victim didn't get hurt? Well, the court says no, because the person didn't get hurt. They were just,
speaking as a therapist, the trauma will last forever.
yes, but they're not physically hurt. The courts don't see that. There is victim advocate, for trauma and things of that nature, that there's victims groups within the public defender's office, and they can seek help and things of that nature, but
they're underfunded.
yes, and they don't have enough people to do it, and there's victims are all over the place. So people ask me, so what's a safe neighborhood? And I says, I would tell people, where there's people, there's crime. So even right now, all those invasions and Beverly Hills and things of that nature, where you think that the up and the richy people are not getting victimized, they are getting victimized.
A lot.
Yes. So whereas people, there's crime. So that's what I would tell people. You just have to know how to protect yourselves in a sense. So.
That is a lot to leave behind. How do you train the new folks coming up to go to an academy? What do you tell them?
There's lots of things that they have to learn for like test wise, but as far as mental wise, they have to be able to try to take things personal, because it's not really about them in a sense. It's about why are you choosing to be in this profession? Because it's not an easy profession. If it was, everybody would do it. And right now, there are a lot of, not just in this state, but even across the country, where people are not wanting to be law enforcement. So there's vacancies all over the place. And to the point where our academy, it's an extended academy, which means that it goes part-time. It goes 3 days a week for a year almost. We've had people from Texas come out to recruit. We've had people from down in the border come to recruit. We had people come from Washington State to come recruit at our academy.
Chase Texas out. They can't have our people.
Because people it's just a very demanding, especially now, profession, and nobody wants to do it. And then you have people who want to do it, but based on their background are not able to do it because of something they've done in the past. So there's criteria being law enforcement, and especially now with Senate Bill 2, if you've done certain things in your background, or if you've done certain things while you're hired or while you're working, the state can defund or decertify your certificate, your post certificate, and you can't be a cop anymore in the state. So cops are just running scared.
Yeah.
So why would you want to put yourself through that? So
put yourself through all the stress and effort of going through post.
Yeah. So what we're telling the students now, not to say that there aren't students who are coming who want to be in law enforcement. What we're explaining to them is that you have to be above board. You have to have ethical. You have to have professionalism at all times, not just while you have wearing that uniform, because your friends, your family know that you're in law enforcement. They're expecting you to act a certain way, whether you're working or not. And so that's still a lot of emotional stress that you have to put on yourself, because you have to be above board
all the time.
So,
and not take work home with you.
Not
traumatize your family.
Yes.
Not be stressed when you get home after what you've just seen, but can't tell anyone.
Yes. And so you're carrying a lot. You're carrying a lot in your brain and in your entire body, because it's everything's a stressor. Everything's a stressor. Getting up out of bed is a stressor. You know. So
are you glad you were a cop?
I'm extremely glad that I was a cop. I met some people. I've done some things that I'm very proud of. I met little kids, and then I had ride-alongs. I met older people. I mean, like this one particular time, this gentleman, it was a Sunday, he ran a stop sign. I pulled him over, didn't know who he was, obviously. Come to find out, he's Alzheimer's. He wasn't supposed to be driving. He snuck out. His wife was asleep. He snuck out, went to church, stopped and got groceries, and he was on his way home. And he happened to run the stop sign. So could I have told his car? Because first of all, he didn't have a license. Yes, I could have. Could I have taken him to jail without having a license? Yes, I could have. But instead, I put him in the backseat of my car, took his groceries with me, took him home, told his wife what's going on, took the groceries into the house for them, and told her where the car was and gave her the keys. And I left.
Can I just say you would be the godsend for my entire Alzheimer's support group that I run on the third Saturday of every month?
You have to know, they don't teach, I mean, they do teach, that's one of the classes, people with disabilities, that's one of the post-required classes. So we have training in identifying someone who has Alzheimer's, identifying someone who has dementia, and how to deal with those individuals, and how to deal with somebody who's hearing impaired and blind, and things of that nature. So we have that, and it's a long class. I mean, it's long meaning it's hourly. It's certain hours that they have to do, and there's a test on it. So it's not like we don't get the training, but not everybody has the patience to deal with somebody to that extent.
Very few. And we've had a lot of people in my group who have been runners, one of whom destroyed his truck while he was on the loose. And had he had someone intervene with him before that, that would have been a godsend and helped his wife take the keys faster.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've dealt with a couple of people who had Alzheimer's in my career, and it's hard in a sense to where you want to help them, but they don't know, they don't recognize you, they don't recognize their family, they don't recognize what's going on. So you have to be able to be patient and understanding that you have to meet them where they're at. And some people
still protect them from themselves.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, it's difficult.
I do want to share one quick story, because as Roz says, she's met a lot of people. My children, as all the class knows, are adopted, all of them. And my first adoptee child, who is now 33, I feel old saying that, was completely afraid of police officers when we got her. And that is because her birth parents taught the children, when they saw police, to drop to the floor, yell cops, and run, because of the things they were up to. And it was Carrie getting to know Roz who helped teach her that police officers are people that you should approach and trust and look to for support and guidance and safety. And I don't think she ever told Roz that, but that was something we practiced with her every single week. Was you go up and say good morning, and you see that police officers are safe, warm, caring people who care about you. And it made all the difference in the world to her as a small one, and then to Chloe after that, because she came from an equally difficult birth family. So, and it was SBSO that finally got Chloe's birth parents off the street. So grateful I am for the kind of police officer that Roz was, and the training that she's doing still.
Yeah.
Roz, if they have questions about what it's like, if this class does about to lose one's career and to change one's life up, is it possible for them to reach out to you?
Sure.
Okay, I have your email. I'll put it in the notes for them, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
I appreciate that. Do you have any last words about what it is that police officers, law enforcement need from the chaplains, the social workers, the therapists, the people in their community? What is it that they need?
They need to know that it's very difficult for someone to ask for help. And being in law enforcement, even firefighters, because firefighters are supposed to be gruff and be able to handle everything. They need to know that for someone to ask for help, it's a very difficult admission, and which I'm sure that occurs, is just give them a safe space to open up to them and not bombard them with questions right off the bat. Just let them try to figure out how to say what they're going to say and what they want to say. And it may come in different spurts, different times, different triggers may occur at different times. And it may not all be in order. And it depends on the situation and the day because they may have just come off of work and had a bad situation. So they may be there physically, but mentally they're not there. And just to let them get through it, give them the time to get through it.
Let them have the decompress.
Yes, because where I did my patrol time, it's an hour away. So my decompression time was after work, depending on, I would either go to the gym and then drive home. So that was my decompression time. But some people don't have that time to decompress. Sometimes because towards the end of my career, I'm sorry, we were working 12-hour shifts. So so if I had to be in court, if I worked graveyard and I had to be in court, so that could
It was an
turn out
18-hour shift or 20-hour shift.
Then I had to be back to work within maybe 5-6 hours. So sometimes you're sleep deprived.
That seems illegal, I just gotta say.
It is what it is, right?
Yes,
so
it is. It's the career.
Yeah, it's a career. So sometimes it's very hard to let things go, but you have to go from one call to the next, and you shouldn't, not that you can't, but you shouldn't, police officers shouldn't take the next call. If they had a bad call one and something else happens, they have to be able to compartmentalize their day.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, what do they do with all that? So as clergy and therapists and psychologists, they just need to know that obviously everybody's different, but everybody explains things different. Everybody feels things differently. Everybody, not one thing is going to fix everything. Not one sentence or one word is going to work on everybody. So they need to know different methods of how to get that person to feel better about themselves or the situation. Not one size doesn't fit all. So and you have to deal with different, not just like for men, trying to talk to a man and get him to explain how he's feeling is totally different from a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to a different race is different than talking to another race. Their experiences are different. Like in my household, you didn't cry. You just did what you're supposed to do. You weren't allowed to share your feelings. You weren't allowed to talk. You weren't allowed to ask questions. You just did what you were told. So for me, trying to explain myself, it's very difficult because I wasn't allowed as a kid. So different cultures have different ways of dealing with things. So they have to, it's very, I took sociology because I wanted to be a sociologist. I wanted to learn different ways because there's different people in this world. You have to learn how to what do you call it? Try to identify with them and learn their culture. Otherwise,
how do you communicate with them?
How do you communicate with them? So I knew, like where I worked, we had a population of Asians, and I knew doing my social work and sociology classes that you take your shoes off when you enter their house, right? And cops, you're not supposed to take your shoes off because maybe you have to run. Right. So when I was a training officer, I would tell my trainee, okay, we're going to this house. It's an Asian house. We can't take our shoes off, but that's their culture. So how are you going to rectify that? What are you going to do? And they had no clue. So I had to explain to them. You ask them, is it okay if I leave my shoes on? And explain to them the reason why you're leaving your shoes on. And for the most part, they would say yes.
Right.
But if you just walked in, you disrespected them. Mm-hmm. And also, too, if there's a male in the house, the female won't talk to you until you get permission from the male to talk. So you have to know different cultures, things of that nature. So, and just like with therapists, you have to know the culture that officer or that firefighter, whatever, is coming from, because they're going to bring all their biases with them, even though they're not supposed to. They're going to bring their culture with them. They're going to bring, how they were raised with them into that office.
Mm-hmm. And each agency, whether it's law or fire or any other kind of first responder, has their own culture within that.
Yeah,
So you got multiple layers of culture that you
dealing
need
with.
to be cognizant of.
Yeah, and being what we called it, the sheriff's department here in San Bernardino, it was called the Cowboys. The rugged old cowboy mentality. It's one deputy, one fight, and because for the most part you're out there by yourself, and you have to fight whoever until your help comes, and it could be CHP coming to help you because you're in a remote area of San Bernardino, and that is your backup, and that's 2 hours away. So you have to figure out how to communicate what's going on and learn how to talk to people.
And talk them down for
Yes,
your own protection.
yes. you know so
And folks, just so that you know, San Bernardino County is in fact the largest county in the entire United States of America, and stretches all the way to Clark County, Nevada. So
and
it's huge.
Arizona,
And Arizona.
and it borders Orange County, LA County, and Riverside County.
It's huge. Look it up on a map. So when Roz is talking about patrol area, the high desert is an entirely different animal. If you are in Wisconsin or even in Texas, it's a very different kind of
Mentality.
yeah. We've got resort mountain communities, and we have high desert folks who are hiding from law enforcement in the river bottoms.
And low desert folks who are hiding. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we have military bases in a lot of our areas, and so you have the military you have to deal with in certain areas, and so we
It's
have
a
snow, rain, sleet,
all in the same
earth.
day.
Oh yeah,
Earthquakes.
depends. Yeah, the earthquakes what we had yesterday. So it
Right.
depends on where you're at, and law enforcement and firefighters are expected to deal with that. What do you do when there's an earthquake? What are you supposed to do? There's a protocol that we're supposed to handle. And
Mm-hmm.
and then you're trying to figure out, is my family safe, because you're worrying about, did my house just fall in the ground or whatever. But you can't, you can think that, but you can't go respond to your house to figure it out. You have the community you need to take care of first.
Right.
So
You're up in Hesperia instead, or up in the scrub, or down in
yeah.
Palm Desert. Yeah. And a lot of our communities in California contract with our local sheriff's departments. They don't have their own law enforcement. They have sheriff's department staff who are acting as local law. So it's a very, very department that she came from. It's a lot to adapt to.
Yeah, you have the sheriff's department, and then like she said, contract cities who which means that they are paying the sheriff's departments to be the law enforcement for that community. But you also have city council you have to deal with, and city rules and things of that nature, even though you work for the sheriff's department, the county department. So it's a lot of politics.
It's a lot of politics, and it's a lot to then leave behind, that stress level. But then there's stress of not having the stress. So when you are dealing with someone who has been where Roz is and they are seeking support, I want you to take Roz's words with you so that you are remembering all those layers and asking the right questions and listening for what it is that they are telling you they need. Don't assume.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. I absolutely, totally appreciate it. I know it was last minute and all of that, and you have been an amazing interview, and this class is going to get a lot out of this.
I hope so.
I'm sure they will. I appreciate it. Class, I will send you Ross's email address so that you can reach if you'd like to. And I hope you have a great class tonight.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.